Good afternoon. A couple of you asked me a question which I consider to be very serious. How to make my job interesting to me? Very serious question. So, and thinking about how to answer to this question, I developed a short algorithm for you to use in order to overcome that fatigue or that tiredness of working under the condition when it's not interesting. So first of all, we need to ask a question to ourselves, whether our job, or I would rather say working or doing what we are doing, is it the same as our vocation or calling? And there are several answers, at least 3 answers are possible to this question. If no, it can be no, it can be yes, and it can be I don't know. I will start with the third one. So first of all, for those people who don't know how to answer this question, you need to sleep well, you need to repose, you need to rest a little bit, and then to come back to this question and ask it again, and then to come finally to the question. Let's say no. We will start with this question. We will start with this answer, I would rather say. So, and if not, we need to find our vocation. How to do it, I described in a different program, in one of the previous programs, but I will outline it very briefly. So we need to use a psychological posture of asking a question to ourselves, or psychological posture of the last day in our life. It's when we imagine that this is the very last day, there will be no other day after this, and we've already said bye-bye to our beloved ones, and now we have like 10 hours or even more left, and we don't need to go to the office, to the job, we don't need to do anything. So what we want to do during those last hours of our life? We need to answer to this question, because then as soon as we have the answer, it will give us the energy, because we will find that sparkle, or as like God's sparkle in ourselves, in the sense in our life, and that will create the energy to do further steps. And then we can decide whether we should quit our job right away if it doesn't meet that vocation. Or like for example, in the books of Somerset Maugham, there are 2 cases, or at least as far as I know, to me, in one of his novels, The Moon and Sixpence, he describes how one let's say officer from the bank, how he quit the job, family and everything, and went to Paris and decided to be a painter. Though not successful, poor, etc., but you will definitely can read that novel, very good novel. Or you can read also a short story, Lotus Eater, which is also about this subject of like boredom in the work. This job is not for me, and I need to do something different. So you will read those stories, and you will identify your answer to yourselves. I know some cases from my life. I am from a small town in Cherkasy region, and we had one man on the street who, in fact, by profession was a tractor driver, but he was like I don't know, like a spiritual person for us, like a saint for us, because all his time and all his thoughts were not dedicated to the tractor driving, but to making a delta plan, to making a motor plane, because he wanted to fly, and he was working on that all the time, after work and before the work. He was working on trying to develop that flying machine. So, and also I know one more case when a judge, in addition to her legal practice, all her time she dedicates, free time she dedicates also to flowers, because she loves flowers. She cannot live without growing flowers, different types of flowers. So these are at least 2 examples how we can get out of this situation. Also, we need to remember one thing, that money don't give us energy. in fact, don't give us that energy which we get as soon as we are walking along the lines of our vocation. And here I showed you how we can combine of the work. We need to, of course, earn money for books, for family, to support the family, and also we need to remember about this thing, because this thing gives us the energy. Also, when we answer to the question, to this question, whether our doing or what we are working on, whether it meets our vocation, if we give a positive answer, then it becomes more difficult to find the reasons, because we need to find the reasons why it happens that this work is not something which makes me happy. And I made a short list of problems or reasons that could cause such a feeling of unacceptedness of this life, of such a work anymore. And also I will give you some short solutions from these problems. First of all, among the reasons is that we don't understand what interest is. Just to in the previous one of the previous programs, I spoke about how Valery Kurinsky in his works, how he suggested to actualize interest, or how to make it work, how to make it felt, how to deal with interest in general. And that he deserves for that definitely some kind of a big prize, because nobody else did it before. And so we need to understand interest as a feeling. First of all, it's very similar. If to draw some kind of a comparison, it's when we are in love, we have something similar in our body. We feel like harmony, or natural harmony, is some kind of a music, polyphonic music is playing in us. So those are like similarities with interest. Interest is a feeling, but the feeling which can pass very quickly, and also which can be burned out very quickly. And there are reasons for that too. And one of the reasons we don't know how to actualize it and how to revive it. You go to the previous programs and find the answer for that. Also, we are made by nature in such a way that we get used to things very quickly. Just smell a flower, take a tulip or a daisy, and you will feel the smell maybe for 3 seconds, maybe 4, and that's it. And why? It's because we get adapted to it. So we need to do something not to adapt, not to get adapted, not only to people around, but also to our favorite, or to our, let's say, the profession or the business that we love. For that, Kurinsky suggested also to choose a culturological group of subjects, or subjects that we are working on. For example, if you are in IT profession, right? So we need, we program, so we need to program not just in Python, but also in C++, maybe there is some other programming language that is appealing to you, that is very beautiful. So we need to find the most beautiful languages in programming, and we need to select 3 of them, at least 3 of them. Plus, we need to add to this group of languages, IT languages or programming language. We need to add compulsory, mandatory philosophy, and also music, classical music, good jazz, and also good folk music. Those are things that to be added. And you can also add literature. That will be very good to start with, because this variety of subjects allows us to move our interest. When we feel that it's on the peak, we need to move it to a different subject. Then we will keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. It's like fire, right? We like candles. We light the candles with this feeling of interest. Otherwise, usually it burns down. So we look, very often we study something, we learn something, we love it, we know that we love it, we are convinced that we love it. And then when we come to the job, when we find finally a job, day, 2 weeks, and it becomes awfully boring. And then we will have existential problem, because Boring is like poison. It poisons us. We need to find a solution for that. So think about interest, think about adaptation. Read the works of Valery Kurinsky, and it's I showed already a couple of times this book, post-psychological. It's autodidactics, post-psychology, autodidactics, Valery Kurinsky. Next point. Very often we forget about goals. First of all, goals should be tactical for us. And we need to understand the difference between tactical and strategic goals. Strategic goals, something very, very big, very huge. And tactical goals, small steps, the small steps. Like I showed you in previous videos on languages, we should start with just working on the movements. When we have them working well, then we will move to a different level, when we know how to make them well. So, next problem could be that we don't practice introspection. Introspection, it's when we observe ourselves as from a side, or as from a side. And not only just ourselves, but rather the skills that we have. So that's the goal of introspection in general. Some of the people, one more problem, that some of the people want to develop or want to create a masterpiece. I quote Kurinsky, don't make a masterpiece, because that makes us, that we squeeze ourselves in some kind of existential clips, and we cannot do anything, and we will be very unhappy. Especially if we don't know the stages of the creation process of something. Next point is about perfectionism. Some of those who watch this program, they belong to those people who are perfectionists, called a perfectionist. It's very good. They deserve respect for this. I would rather suggest them that perfectionism as attitude to what they are doing, to shift from what they are doing rather to actualizing their interest, to the interest, to make the